You're listening to Her Sage Talks. I'm your host, Jo. Grab yourself a virtual bundle of sage and let's clear the air together as our guests share transformative wisdom to help you elevate your life. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today, we are honored to have the stunningly gorgeous Robin Kraft. She is an entrepreneur. She owns Sheer Style Salon in the Sacramento area of California. Not only that, she's a mother of two, and she continuously blows me away with how she balances and maintains being a fine-ass wife and a mother and an entrepreneur of so many things, and you have so many ventures. Robin, thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me. You're so kind.
Of course. And just a little background, guys. I do know Robin from back in the day. High school, coming out of high school. So it's amazing to see where she has grown into and where she is now in life versus like where we came from. It's beautiful to me.
It is. It's nice to see because I don't think a lot of people actually experience that, seeing someone grow in such a long time span. Like I didn't see it up close for you, but like checking in here and then and seeing how far you've grown. It's amazing and wonderful. And that just goes to show that it can happen for other women too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I'm so happy to have you here. Robin, do you want to share a little bit about your story and how you got to, I guess, where you're at in life and with the audience?
How far back are we going?
No, yeah, whatever you willing to share.
So I am a first generation Filipina. I came here when I was a baby. My parents were both from the Philippines. And when we came out here, my parents had nothing, but I didn't know we had nothing. We didn't know we had nothing. I actually had a pretty good childhood for the most part. My parents were volunteers in the Lions Club, which is like a humanitarian organization that gives back to the community and strengthens all of that. And I did Sinagdala, which gave me a lot of confidence at a young age. All of that, I think, really had an effect on me as a kid and really gave me the confidence and the motivation and just having values, like having a community, like being kind, giving back. There was a lot of love there. It wasn't really until I lost my dad when I was 13, he died in a car accident, that my life kind of went a whole separate way. It was like a very traumatic experience. And I did all the wrong things. Anything that could go wrong in my life, any road that was like the wrong road, I went down that road. And although there was some people in my life that tried to reach out and look out for me, I was very rebellious and stubborn. So I learned a lot of life lessons on that path. And so all of that happening to me has really accumulated, and more so with more I will share, into the person I have become. And I feel like I've turned, and I'm still struggling with it. I'm still dealing with it. I've turned a lot of my trauma and all of the toxic relationships that I was in into personal, I use that as motivation for myself because I know that I can do hard things. I've done hard things before and I've overcome, so that no matter what happens in life, I know I could do it again. So the fear, I feel like I've had fear-based thoughts before that ruled my life, and I would make decisions based out of fear, based out of being alone or not fitting in or not being good enough. But going through all that and having experienced those feelings and overcoming them, I know now as a woman, as a mom, as a wife, no matter what happens, I could figure it out.
Wow. That is powerful. And let me just say kudos to you. And guys, Robin is the kindest person. If you want to get your hair done and you are in Sacramento, like literally you can sit in her chair and it is like coming out of a therapy session. You just
Everyone
feel
says
so
that.
new. It's true. Like you're just overcome by this kindness and you just feel like you went through this healing session, especially like you're speaking about trauma. I think a lot, like we went through similar traumatic experiences coming out of those rebellious years, I think. And that's, I think, why we connect so much, both first generation Filipino American. And culturally, I think Filipinos are kind and we came from that. But like you, I think I had to learn those hard lessons as well. So yeah, I think once you hit those rock bottoms, you're just like, I could do this. I totally get it. Can you share with me, like, it is so great to see like you as a mom and the things you share on social media. It's beautiful. Like, how are you balancing being an entrepreneur and your business and then still showing up for your family and for your husband even?
Well, that's a loaded question for me because I think that answer changes depending on which season that I'm in. Because I've gone through seasons of when I was a young mother and a younger entrepreneur and I was in hustle mode and I felt like I had to and work so many hours and do so many things behind the scenes in order to feel productive or feel like I was doing enough for the business. And over time, I think I wanted a different life for myself and for my children because I felt like I wasn't able to be there to pick my kids up from school and take them to school every day. So, in this season of my life, my priority is actually my family because my son is a teenager now, well, preteen, and my daughter, she's 6, but they are very aware. So, this part of parenting is probably the hardest I've ever had to deal with because it's more than just keeping them alive and feeding them. It's like teaching them how to be humans, teaching them how to have values and character and to not be a follower and to learn how to problem solve and make decisions like this I actually want to be around because around this age, my son's 12, I was 13 when I started making the wrong decisions. So I know that right now I want to be there to be able to not necessarily give advice, but be a lighthouse for my son and my daughter so that they know that I'm there. Because I don't think I felt like I had that as a child. So right now, my priority is my family, and I'm lucky enough to actually be able to work when I want and to be able to be there for my kids when I want and be able to have time with my husband and all of that stuff. And I know that a lot of people, they're not going to get that right away because in the beginning, it wasn't like that at all. I had to grind, I had to hustle. And that's when hustle culture was like a good thing. I don't necessarily see that as a good thing anymore. So in this season of my life, I am very grateful for having the ability to wake up or schedule my time in a way that makes me feel good and makes me happy and joyful about the life that I'm living.
I think I can resonate with that so much. Having a daughter of my own, she's 14, almost 15. Wow.
She's so like, I did her hair before. I remember. She's such a good kid. Like, she's such a cool
Oh my
girl.
God. And I mean, you're so right though. There was a point in my life where I was very much, hustle culture and I was living in SF in San Francisco and having multiple jobs just to stay afloat to provide for her, provide for me. But she was so young, right? And it was a little bit more of, she was just excited to do whatever mommy wanted to do. And we did stuff together. She was in soccer, she was in dance, but I was able to still have the energy. And I was even much younger where I had the energy to balance all of those things. But you're right. As she got older and, her dad passed away, I had to kind of take a step back in my career and in my hustle mode and really pour into my child and help her become a better person. And actually, I've been having a lot of conversations recently with people. She just started high school, and I am just blown away about how she's been killing it. Like her grades are amazing, her room is clean, her social life is through the roof. And I don't really have to do much anymore. I mean, I still, guide her when she's having those tough days, but I would say that when you take that time to pour into motherhood, it comes back tenfold because I'm finally seeing that like middle school was tough, like that, that age of 11, 12, 13, it was a lot of changes, a lot of, different experiences that they're going through, and being able to pause and be there for them in whatever capacity they need, I think speaks so many numbers, and it evolves your relationship so much too.
Oh, for sure. And I'm still learning how to be a parent. I still Google, what should I do when this happens? How to speak to my child about this? Like, it's an ever evolving process. Like, and that's one thing about me is I know I don't know everything. And I know that there's so much more to learn. And there's so many things even about myself and my childhood that I don't necessarily want to project on my children if they're not good things. You get what I'm saying? Like, I just want my kids to live a joyful, happy, rewarding life. And I know they're going to make mistakes, but I just want them to have options later and just be happy. Is that so much for a parent to ask?
I know, right? It's interesting. Like you say that it's ever growing. We are ever growing, and being able to Google stuff is, I think, such a blessing. I don't think our parents were able to do that. So
I think there was it like encyclopedias, and you'd have to buy them from like the people that came to the store.
Oh my gosh. I remember I was in trouble. My parents were like, read a book. And we didn't have a lot of books we owned. And they made me read the dictionary. I was in like the worst trouble. I forgot what I did, but I had to read a dictionary at one
That's
point.
hilarious.
So yes.
That sounds like a Filipino household though. Go read the dictionary.
Right. You're in trouble. Go read. Sit in the corner and go read something.
That's hilarious.
Right. That's like, so you say you went through a lot of trauma, right? And you're growing from it and still learning from it, and having to protect your children from, I like to say, like, having generational wealth is not just wealth, it's generational, like being able to break that generational trauma too. Like, how are you helping yourself continue to grow through those moments and shield your children from that? Because I often have to pause and reflect on that myself when I get triggered or when I go through certain moments, and protect my child from that. How do you do that?
So one thing is that I'm always trying to work on myself, right? Like, there's always something that you can work on, no matter how wealthy you are, how successful you are, whether or not you've reached whatever marker of success that you've given yourself. Oprah Winfrey is still working on something about herself, right? I think being self-aware and having the awareness of what you're working on and what traumas you have and what triggers that you have, being aware of those is the first step, right? Because if you're aware, then there's something that you can do about it. And I like to fill my household, my mind up with positive like affirmations and things. Like when I'm listening to podcasts, my kids are also listening to them. Cause I listen to them in the car, and sometimes they're like, what are they talking about? I'm just like, you'll remember this when you're older. You know what I mean? It's subconsciously feeding them positive things to fill their mind, right? And, I leave books around, and sometimes they'll be like, well, what is this? Or why are you reading that? Or why are you doing this? Because children, you can tell them as much as you want to and try to tell them about life, but they don't necessarily listen to you. They watch you. They watch what you do. You can say, this is bad, don't do that. But then if you go do it, then they're just like, is it bad or is it not? Or are we just supposed to say it's bad, right? So just living the life and walking in those steps that you want your children to walk in, I think, and that's so challenging because there's sometimes I'll tell my children like, do this or do that, but it's like, wait, am I doing that? Or, like just making the right choices and the right decisions, or if they're going through obstacles or having challenges at school with friendships. Right now it's friendships and trying to fit in, or with my daughter, it's like there's certain times, she's only 6 and they already have like mean girl things going on at school. Yeah. It's like teaching her like, just be kind and don't be a follower. That's what I tell her every day when I drop her off at school. Just be kind to everyone and don't be a follower. Like, do what you think is right and do what you want to do, not because so and so is telling you to do it. And that's really the rules that I live by. And I actually believe in myself that I feel like I learned that along the way when I was a kid. Is I think there was a quote that stuck with me, and it was, if you those who follow the crowd usually get lost in it. And it's something that sticks with me to this day, because I'm like an old soul. I've always felt like I didn't fit in with my peers or the people around me. I always felt like, what's wrong with me? Why don't I care about these like petty conversations these people are having? Or why don't I want the drama? Like, why are these people so energized by drama? Like, I've always wanted to be away from all that and I don't know if it's because I lost someone and I lost a parent that I just felt like, what are you guys even doing all this for? There has to be more to life than this. So maybe that's why, but I just want my children to feel that way too. And really anyone that meets me or anyone that I come across, everybody is like trying to be something. And I just wish everyone could just be themselves, not what the world is telling you to be and not what society is telling you to be, not even what these self-help books and all this stuff is telling you to be. Like, choose what's right for you, what fits in with your life and your beliefs and your mindset. And really right now, I feel like that's what I'm trying to get back to, is to my true self. Like, they say as you get older and as you heal, really what people end up doing is just coming back to who they were before the world told them who to be. Like, when they were children, what did they love to do? What were they passionate about? What brought them joy before it was uncool, or before maybe it didn't lead them to money, or it didn't lead them to having, certain things that they wanted to, materialistic things or stuff like that. Like, what would you do? And this is actually a question that came up at dinner the other day, is what would you do if you didn't have to make money? This is what we had a family dinner, and I was like, well, what would you do if money didn't matter and you didn't have to make money? What would you do? And really, that's just what I want to do. Well, also, I want to make money, but I want to do what I feel is my purpose. Because at the end of the day, I feel like people are just looking, whether they realize it or not, people are just looking for their purpose. Like, when people feel lost, or when people don't know which direction to go, or when people just are in chaos and all this, at the end of the day, there has to be some type of like goal, not necessarily a goal, like a knowing, if that makes sense. And I don't know if that's getting kind of woo woo or whatever, but I mean, we're all just souls having a human experience. You know what I mean? Like, we're all energy. We're all just trying to figure something out. And unless we have a purpose and know who we are and what we're trying to do, it's like, then we just get lost and we get stagnant, or we get paralyzed, or we live in fear. And yeah.
I love it. No, I love that you guys had that conversation over dinner. Like, that is beautiful. And for you to be having those conversations with your children at such young ages, I think plants those seeds. Yeah, because that creates like character. And whenever they have those tough moments, they'll be able to fall back on those teachings that you have taught them so far. I have similar conversations with my daughter, and I've had for a while. Like, her dad passed away when she was 6. So it's been a journey. And you're right, like, trauma creates a lot of, I think, walls around you. And it's hard. You kind of get lost in the shuffle with living through fear, or like, you try to protect yourself to a point where you lose those connections to who you really are. And so I have experienced that for both of us, me and my daughter. We had to do like this long, long healing journey before we can kind of get back to ourselves, our authentic selves, and who we are in this world, be confident in what we wanted to do. So yeah, I'm so happy you're having those conversations with your children so young.
Well, I'm happy you are too. I think it's a good sign. I mean, we want our children to not have to go through the things that we went through in order to learn those things. And I feel that we want to protect our children from having the trauma and from having, these hard times. Sometimes we can't, but a way that we can is by telling them what we went through and what we learned, right? And I think coming from a Filipino household, there was so much left unsaid. There was not a lot of communication. There was like, oh, if it's bad, sweep it under the rug. You just pretend like you're okay, and just it was just very like surface level. And I don't want that in my family household. I don't want that in my house. I want my kids to be able to ask me things, whether it's awkward or not. I want to be able to keep an open line of communication with them. And I guess that's one thing different from my childhood and going through all that I want my children to experience without having to fall and, hit their heads.
So true. I think most Asian households, Filipinos more specifically, like there's that uncomfortable level of emotion that never gets touched on. And, whether it's sadness, anger, or what have you, right? I always think of this moment when me and my cousins would get in fights or something would happen. And my grandma would just make us stand in front of each other and say, hug each other and make up and then go back to playing. But we never really spoke about like the reason why we were angry. And then fast forward to adulthood, I had a lot of issues expressing the anger, and I had to like learn how to communicate those those feelings. And I think even with my daughter, I didn't learn how to do that until later in life, till after her father passed away. I was just like, oh my gosh, we need to talk about this, or we need to talk about these emotions that you're feeling, because it's not good to hold those things in.
Absolutely. I actually went through something similar because I kind of shut down. I used to write so much when I was little. Like I would write books and I would write all these things in my journal. And then when I lost my father, something in me, like I just kind of became paralyzed, and I didn't have a way to express what I was feeling, and I don't think I had a safe space to speak about what I was feeling, or even past that later on in my relationships. Like I had some really toxic relationships that it's like I wouldn't wish that on anyone, and I couldn't express myself in those relationships either. And even in some friendships, it's like it's a lot of adults and grown people don't know how to communicate. And I don't think it ever ends unless somebody intentionally wants to communicate how they feel and express their feelings in positive ways. There's just like an automatic, like I said, like the initial reactions, right? When you have all these fast thoughts and fear-based thoughts, and that's how you react. So I actually try to slow my thoughts down when I'm in situations so that I give myself time to soak up what I'm feeling, but also to be able to express what I'm feeling in a way that the other person can receive it.
Oh my God, that's powerful. I struggle with that, honestly. So sometimes I get so angry, it's like word vomit. And so, can you like share with the audience, like, what are the steps that you take to slow that down? And because, you're in a marriage, and your family is gorgeous, by the way.
Oh,
And
you're
so
so
like
sweet.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of women out there that struggle with these things, right? That like women and men, I think both struggle with communication. I think that pours into the dynamic in a lot of relationships. Like what do you guys do in your marriage to kind of keep that safe space between not just your marriage, but maybe in your whole family, to like let emotions feel like they have a space to be heard and can be received?
So, first, I'll preface that with the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself, right? So, people, in order to be able to have successful relationships, authentic relationships with other people, not just your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, your friends, your family, and stuff like that, we have to first be aware of our relationships with ourselves. Because if we can't be true to ourselves, be self aware and know that what we're lacking, what we're struggling with, and not just feel like we don't do anything wrong, It's the whole world is wrong. It's the whole world's fault. We don't take accountability. We have to take a radical accountability with our lives and our choices first. Because no matter what happens, like what position you are in or wherever you're at in life, your choices led you there, right? Maybe something like we can't always blame the world for where we're at and what we're doing. Something we decided, a thought process, a mindset, an opinion, something triggered that. And sometimes we use that as self protection in order to make us not have to take accountability for our actions. And in my marriage and in my family, I guess it kind of goes with my morning rituals, number one, morning and evening rituals. I make space in my mind first before I do anything else in the day. First, I write down my dream when I wake up in the morning. First, I write down what my dream was. And then whatever just comes up, sometimes I write, sometimes it makes no sense. Sometimes it's like dope. Like, it's like, oh, and then sometimes it's like getting it out. Right. And then I try to just have like, you can call it what you want, like, but I try to meditate at least for 10 minutes, right? Like whatever comes up in my brain and my thoughts, a lot of times there will be something and sometimes there won't be anything. But if I become aware of the things that are taking up my mind space and my thoughts, and I deal with those and I kind of process those emotions or feelings and then move on, when the day comes to me actually dealing with people, I have more space to deal with whatever they're wanting to exchange with me, the exchange, the energy exchange. So first I try to, because I am an introvert too. So I'm naturally an introvert.
I didn't know
Oh
that.
yeah, I'm an introvert.
Oh, wow. So am I.
I at work, I'm not an introvert because I feel like, the business aspect, the client comes first. So I have to always make sure the client's comfortable and all that stuff. But in my home life and like, just me being in my own world, I am an introvert. My energy comes from within. I don't get energy from being around people. In fact, other people drain me. So I have to be very intentional. And this I've also had to learn recently. It's actually recently. Well, it's an ongoing lesson. They say it keeps coming unless you learn it. I have to be intentional about who I'm around and the situations I'm in and the environments I'm in and the relationships that I'm spending time with, because there is an energy exchange there. And like whoever you're most around, whatever you most feed your mind, whatever your most your environment it does shape you. And people argue about that, right? They say, no, I can be around this type of person, I can be in this environment and it doesn't affect me. But essentially that's not true, because everything is energy, and maybe it might be subtle, but there's an energy exchange there. And some people are more intuitive and they can feel it, right? They can feel like, oh, when I leave this place, do you feel joy? Do you feel like you have energy or happy? Or do you feel like, why do I feel drained? Why do I feel tired? Why does this make me feel like a negative way? I don't think that a lot of people are aware of that, and they're not listening to their body, because your body tells you everything. We just have to be like in tune with that. And we have to become more aligned with what our goals are, what kind of life we want, what kind of day we want. Everything that we surround ourselves with, we have to choose and be aware of what is affecting us, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with, everything that you said. I wonder though, like, okay, because you have I'm sure your household might be a little crazy. You have two kids, you have a husband. So do you like intentionally wake up before everyone to
Yes,
carve out that time? Okay.
I do.
Wow.
I
Okay.
and it's not that much earlier. Sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 15 minutes, if I stayed in bed a little longer. But I do try to like wake up earlier, so I feel like I have my own time before I have to deal with the day, right? I have my own time to maybe just have my coffee and sit on the couch and just like not do anything. Nobody's asking me for anything. Nobody wants this. There's just me, myself, and my time. Like it's kind of like protected time for myself, because you can't give what you don't have, right? In order to give from an overflowing cup, you have to have a full cup. And I am all about self-care. I am the self-care queen. I will take, that is not an option in my house. My husband knows, like, I need to have my time. I need to do whatever I need to do to be able to give to you what you want from me and to be able to give to our kids what they need from me. And I can't do that with not feeling, you know, filled up with in my own cup, in my own mind and all of that. Like,
Yeah, no, I actually struggle with that. That's a good point, right? I sometimes I think as women we're so nurturing and we want to care for everyone, but I often forget to fill my own cup. And I was just talking to someone the other day, like I look back on it and I've been a single mother for so long. And then even before that, I was in a relationship and I've been pouring into someone else's cup for like over 15 years now. And it's just like, wow, I need to learn how to pour into my own cup. Cause yeah, and so like that's so cool that you do that. Do you communicate to your family like this is my
oh,
time
they
to pour
know.
into my cup or oh
Oh
how do
yeah.
they
Well,
know?
because
That's
well,
amazing.
that's my so it's my morning ritual. The things that I do in life, and this is what I'm so like just like happy with my life right now. I don't have to hide who I am. I don't have to hide who I am from my husband. I don't have to hide who I am from my kids. I don't have to hide what I do. I don't have to hide anything. Like everything is like people know what I'm doing, what's going on, all of that stuff. So I have a morning wear ritual. I do my journaling. I do my meditating. Sometimes I'll stretch. I'll have my coffee, and that's my time for myself. Right. I have a night ritual too. And I light my, bougie candles, and I'll have like, it might be a mocktail, a cocktail or something just to feel, it's those they minuscule small things that compound into a joyful life. It doesn't have to be a lot of things. It could be one thing. You could just buy one of those under eye things and put that on for 10 minutes at night and just think to yourself, happy things that you're grateful in your life. It doesn't have to be like these super expensive vacations or spa days and things like that. Because some women, I'll have this conversation with them, like when I'm doing their hair or even just like in daily life, right? And they're like, well, I can't afford to do all that. Well, I'm like, it doesn't have to cost much for you to show yourself some love. You can just look in the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself and say 5 things that you like about yourself. That may not seem like a big thing, but if you did that every day for 30 days, guaranteed, you would have a happier, more abundant, more grateful life.
That's so true. There's like a few things that I put into place within the last year and I can truly say it's made a difference in my life. Like gratitude journaling is one of them and being able to like reflect back even when you had a terrible day or not the best day, I would say, right? Like there are some challenges or what have you, but if you're able to pick out like the smallest details of what made that day great, like that just shifts your mindset so much. And it's just like for me, I've learned to take breaks or I do these like daily walking rituals. I
Yes,
think
I love me a walk. Yeah.
yeah, and I take my little book and I tell my family like I'm going on a walk and I have my little book and I walk to the coffee shop down the street and I'm like this is my time. I leave all of my electronics at home. It's great. And I think ever since I've carved out the time to do that, it's been amazing. I wouldn't say I'm 100% there. There are some days I'm like, I don't feel like doing it. I'm too tired or busy. But those are the days where I feel like kind of chaotic. So yeah.
Right. You do the 5-minute journal too, don't you?
Yeah.
I think,
Yep.
okay, yeah, okay.
I started doing that one because I thought it was so easy. I love the intro part where it kind of teaches you about the science behind. I'm such a nerdy person, so I've always told my parents like if they would have told me why I couldn't do something growing up, I probably wouldn't have done it. But just because they told me no, I did it anyways. So I probably would. But because I said so, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it anyways. But if they told me why it was bad for me, I probably would gave it another thought. And so now I make it a point. I try to tell people why or given an explanation. But because that 5-minute journal explains the science behind what you're doing to your mind. And I think that's why it's so effective. Hmm.
Yeah, the brain is plastic. Are you into neuroplasticity, where they're saying that you can train your
No.
brain? Yeah, they say that your brain is plastic and that you can rewire your brain. You can rewire your thought
What?
process by number one, doing the gratitude stuff, but you can also have like kind of the action and then the reward. And if you do it for so long, eventually your brain will change to react that way. And you can do it for anything.
I love that. I actually, not that specific book, wasn't titled or spoke to that specifically, but I recently read a book called Personality Isn't Permanent. And it's really, really cool. And it talks about how today's society loves to put themselves in boxes instead of taking accountability for the life that they want, and how you can grow into the life that you want and that person that deserves that life instead of boxing yourself into who you were and the traumas that keep you there. And I was like, wow, that light bulb just went off in my head. And I was like, this is groundbreaking. I wish I would have read this book a long time ago.
That's very similar to the abundance mindset, like the science behind the abundance mindset. Because I think it's actually true. I mean, if everything really does start with a thought, right? Thoughts create our reality. And changing the way you think is free. Like, you don't have to be rich to change how you think and to just try to have a positive thought, right? We can wake up, and it might be hard at first for some people. They might have so much stuff that they're dealing with that it's hard for them to just sit down and try to change and reframe their perspective, because a lot of things are perspective. Someone might be and they think it's a bad situation, but there's maybe some things that it could have been worse for them. For me, I just feel like I don't think I'll ever stop wanting to like grow or learn. But I think that the whole journey and like the process of it all is what it's all about, right? Because you hear it all the time, like people are like multimillionaires, billionaires, and they're not happy. So it's like there's more to life than just the achieving the money and the status and the wealth and all of that. It's finding yourself in the process and learning those lessons. I mean, I think that's what life is supposed to be about. Like, money is just energy, and that I'm working on myself is, my money story and how money was kind of explained to me as a child, and then as a teenager and as an adult, what were the stories I was telling myself about money. But they say that you can change your thoughts about that and achieve more abundance in your life. And you can use that for anything in your life, with your relationships and your relationship with yourself, just really anything. You just have to want to, you have to have a desire, it all just starts from inside of you. And that's one thing I'm so grateful for is I have a desire for just wanting to, I'm like always on a search for something. Always on a search. I'm searching for something. I'm happy. I'm happy where I'm at. I'm so grateful for my family and the life that I have, but I know that there's more to life than just once you reach those benchmarks of oh, we are going to have this much money, this much properties, this much this, but where does it end? Like, there has to be more to life than that, right? And sometimes I feel like so different because I just feel like there has to be more. Like, something just wants me to like tear out of this like human skin. Like, there has to be more than just, this. No, seriously. And I don't know. I haven't found too many people that kind of live in that same mindset around me. And that's why I think I gravitate more towards like podcasts and books and stuff like that, because I read and I listen to the people who are living in those mindsets and who have achieved certain things, and they are helping other people and giving back, because essentially I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. And I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out, maybe is that a construct that happened when I was little because I was raised in that way when I was a child to give back? But that's not a bad thing. So just rolling with that.
No, I love it. I am there with you. It took me to move away to really, get rid of all the noise around me, I think. Like all these expectations, Filipino expectations, like friend expectations. It took a lot, right, to get away, finally learn what it looks like to heal and find ourselves. And then from there, we're able to say, okay, how do we live a good life that is authentic to us? How do we live in abundance mindset? How do we grow? How past who we were yesterday? And so once I moved away, I was like, okay, I can do this. Like I love my life. I love who I am. I love at the core of me what I can do, and I know what I'm capable of. And you're right, like that the book I was talking about, Personality Isn't Permanent, they talk about having a growth mindset versus when you live in your past and you live in these boxes, that's actually having a fixed mindset. Like taking these personality tests and not being accountability for how you show up because, oh, that's just my personality. Like that's having a fixed mindset. And it's just so beautiful to hear that you have this growth mindset and it's not stopping. Because you're right, we do go through seasons. Like who we are today, and even as mothers, like that might not be who we are in 10 years when our children are off to college and, you know, like living their lives and like what now? Because that motherhood piece of us has to evolve and that's a part of us today.
I absolutely agree with what you're saying. And I feel like that's similar to rewriting your stories. So, like, people talk about rewriting the stories that you've told yourself throughout life, right? Because we tell ourselves stories, and sometimes there's stories to give us excuses. Like, this happened to me, so I'm not going to do this, or this happened, and or this person did this and they didn't succeed, so I'm just not going to try. People kind of create stories in their mind to make themselves feel better about number one, staying stagnant or just having excuses, right? And so we have to rewrite the stories to stories that will serve us. So they say that you can, and similar to what you're saying about the boxes and all of that stuff, it's similar to that, to where we can actually change how our stories in the past affect us today. Because nothing has any meaning except the meaning that you attach to it, right? Nothing in life really, there's no meaning to life unless you attach a meaning to it, right? I choose to attach a meaning to life. Some people, they may not. They just may think like, we're here now, we'll be gone tomorrow. There's no end of life. There's no next, whatever. Hey, I'm like, hey, to each their own. But for me in my personal life, I feel like there is a meaning to life, right? So when we attach a meaning and rewrite our old stories, we can use them to serve us. Like, oh, this happened to me before, and I reacted in this way, and being aware of how I reacted. So now in the future, you can use it to serve you. Like, oh, I did this before. Now I can do this now. And it's never too late, right? I can rewrite my story today from whatever in the past. Like, it's you're having your own experience. Nobody can tell you what you actually experienced, right? Nobody can tell you what you felt or how you were. It's you're having your own experience of life, and we're all just sharing this experience with each other, but nobody can actually tell you. So if you wake up one day and choose to be, I'm going to be this now, hey, that's on you. If you decide that and you rewrite those stories and change your mindset, I think anybody can change their life. I think if somebody really wants to change their life and improve their life, if that's what they truly want to do, they can. There is no barriers. Like, we have the internet. We have the interweb.
Oh my God. That is so true.
Like, no information is out of reach to us at all. You know, if somebody desires that, it's all there. It's the only thing that's stopping us is ourselves. The only thing that's stopping us is the story that we tell ourselves, or those thoughts that we tell ourselves. It's really, at the end of the day, it's ourselves. And that's why I'm just like so into personal development and self-growth and all this stuff, because I just know that I know that there's more. And I know that, and on this journey, I know that there's so many other people out there that like are struggling with so many things. And even though the information is there, they just don't know where to start. Or sometimes people just look to the outer influence of like some motivation and stuff like that. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. But I do think that there's a difference between reading as many books as you can, listening to all the podcasts in the world, and all these YouTube and coaching programs and stuff like that. There's a difference between doing that, but never actually taking the action, right? Like, you have to actually take what you learned and go and take the action and apply it to your life and do the steps, like do the work. Because I think some people get paralyzed, right? And paralysis, that's where victims live, right? And taking action, that's where victors live. Like, I choose to be victorious in whatever obstacles I overcome and whatever happens. Like, you can't just stay stagnant. You have to just continue to keep going, because if you stay stagnant, you're telling yourself excuses and you're just blaming everything else. And then in that mindset, you can't get anywhere. You're just going to continue living the same year after year, day after day, and nothing changes, right? And it's crazy because there's like a whole part of the world that does believe that and is like working towards that. And then there's another part of the world that they just live in the moment. They just kind of soak up what, all of the propaganda is feeding you and what society and Instagram and all the social media and whatever you see, all of that. It's like people really need to like be aware and have the discernment to know how to make the better choice for themselves. I think so many people are just lost or pretending. And, there's a difference also between pretending. Sometimes you just got to pretend to be, in this good thought process until you actually believe it. And then you are. There's a difference between that, and then just kind of going through the motions, I guess.
That's so true. And and when we talk about social media, I think there is a portion of the choice paradox. One of these books talks about the choice paradox, right? And maybe that plays into like, people being lost or not being able to make the choice for themselves or who they want to be because there's all this noise. And it's tough for people to cut through the noise, I think. So yeah, no, you're spot on. Like I said, it took me moving away to like do that work to really sever, I think, the tie from that victim mentality of what happened to me in the past and really kind of go off the grid for a bit, kind of, so to speak, and do the introspective work and take accountability, look yourself in the face and say, hey, that happened for you, not to you. And this is what you can do with that. I love it.
Yes, all life is happening for us, not to us. Everything that happens is for us as number one, a learning lesson or something to teach us along the way. And if you do think like that, most of the time you have a better outcome, right? Is if we take responsibility. I'm like, oh, well, what is this teaching me? And what am I supposed to be getting out of this? And that process has got me out of so many dark places. Like just taking the accountability, like, oh, okay, well, am I going to sit here and be a victim and blame everyone else? And I did this because this so-and-so or whatever, but I can take it as a learning lesson. Like this has happened for me to realize, this is not the person I am. And this is the direction that I want to go. I don't think that ever ends either.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should probably swap some books. I love everything that you're saying. It's just so beautiful. I know that we're coming up a little bit on time. I know you're so busy. I see all of your reels. I see all of your posts. It is so cool. Like, what are the things what's next for Robin?
Well, so first I'm just working on myself, right? In the future, there are some things I don't necessarily want to reveal them or, how they say, don't tell people what you're working on until like, you're like ready to go. But I mean, you'll see things from me in the future for sure. But right now in this season of my life, I am just kind of working on my own personal growth, trying to heal some past situations that I've dealt with and just be a good wife and a good mom and stuff like that. I am behind the chair. I am, running the salon and all that stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. Like if people want to connect with you on social media or, see, like book an appointment with you, what's the best way for someone to contact you?
Oh, yes. So they can follow me on Instagram at Focus on Your Craft. And then they can also follow the salon page, the Sheer Style Salon. And those are the kind of the best ways to reach me. I'm pretty active on Instagram.
I will definitely reach you. I need my hair done ASAP.
Yes, girl. So, I got you.
Get back in the chair. Yes, I will definitely need it. The holidays are coming up and I gotta get it going. So,
well, you are gorgeous either way, but I got you whatever you need. But it's funny that you say that because everybody says that they feel like they just had therapy when they sit in my chair. So sometimes I'm like, oh, should have been a therapist.
It's
Like,
the energy, girl. It's the energy. It's the vibe. It's the, that exchange of energy that
hmm
you give is like the little bit that people need sometimes. So
yeah, and I love that. Thank you so much for thinking of me and having me on your podcast. I will definitely share it.
I look forward to having you again one day if you are so willing to share any of your new projects or passions and whatever you're working on.
We can make this a new thing.
Yes,
Yes.
would love to. Thank you.
You're welcome.